Tonight, Honduras National Police arresting their former president at his home after the U.S. requested his extradition to the States to face drug trafficking and weapons charges. Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was unseated last month after serving as president for 8 years, facing accusations that he took part in a violent drug trafficking conspiracy, responsible for moving more than 500,000 kilos of.
Yeah, good morning, George. President Trump has repeatedly warned that drugs present an urgent danger to the United States. But this morning, in a major contradiction, the president announcing he's pardoning Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras, currently serving a 45-year prison sentence here in the U.S.
400,000 kilos is what this guy here that Donald Trump is letting out early. That's what he was convicted of facilitating. He was the president of Honduras. His name is Juan Orlando Hernandez. I think just last year he got, in 2024, he got arrested right after his term ended. In 2025, he got his 45-year term. So that number, again, I said, is 400 tons, 400,000 kilos. 400,000 kilos.
Hey, everybody. Donald Trump just announced that he's pardoning one of the largest foreign drug traffickers in the world. For lack of a better word, this is insane. I'm Liz Oyer, the former pardon attorney for the Department of Justice. Juan Orlando Hernandez is the former president of Honduras, a country of about 10 million people in Central America. During his presidency, Hernandez turned Honduras into a narco state, meaning the government itself worked in partnership with drug traffickers to export drugs around the world. Hernandez took millions of dollars of bribes from major international drug traffickers. He partnered with cartels, including the Sinaloa cartel. He even took a $1 million bribe from El Chapo himself. In exchange, Hernandez used his police and military forces to protect these drug traffickers, including using violence when necessary. Under his leadership, Honduras became one of the most violent and most corrupt places on earth. It also became one of the largest export points for cocaine shipments to the United States. In total, Hernandez was responsible for sending 400 tons of cocaine to the U.S. Hernandez was extradited to the U.S. to face trial. In 2024, he was convicted by a jury and sentenced to 45 years in prison, plus an $8 million fine. He was also ordered to forfeit over $15 million in drug proceeds. His conviction and sentencing was the result of over a decade of work by U.S. law enforcement and national security professionals. And then, Donald Trump just wiped it all out in an instant with a pardon. Why did Trump do this? No one knows. Trump is supposedly so concerned about drug trafficking that he is literally blowing boats out of the water. So it makes no sense that he would set this guy free, unless there's something in it for him. Once again, Trump is putting his own interests ahead of the interests of the American people. His pardons are growing more and more dangerous and corrupt. Please help sound the alarm by sharing this information and by asking your elected reps to demand accountability for presidential pardons.
What's Trump's and what was Biden's political reasoning behind making a case and then freeing a guy? Well, Honduras, along with El Salvador, of course, those two countries had the highest murder rates in the world for a lot of years, mainly because of two U.S. gangs, MS-13 and Barrio 18, 18th Street, that were deported down there.
Chris. Well, in that nation's largest city, San Pedro Sula, sociologists say just 5 years ago, there was no gang problem. Now it's estimated the town has at least 35,000 gang members and a war that started on the streets of L.A.
He's a crazy-ass solo from West L.A.
From West L.A., but living here in the barrio outside the city of San Pedro Sula. His gang is called MS. That stands for Mara Salvatrucha.
As well, they're heavy in the dope trade. So again, here you have mixed signals from Trump. He's anti-MS-13 and all these gangs, but he's pardoning a guy who worked with MS-13 to facilitate the movement of 400,000 bricks. El Chapo was personally paying him bribes. And if you think there's a tinge of possibility that he didn't get a fair trial, His brother is doing 25 years for a separate conspiracy. So they were running Honduras as a narco state. Surprise. So don't ever think when you hear about MS-13 and that's some foreign entity. They came here to terrorize us. They're from East LA. MS-13 started, they're from downtown LA. MS-13 started right around the area where now the Staples Center is at, if you've ever been to LA. Now, the timing of the pardon is interesting because just a day or two ago, there was a election, and let's see. Okay, so there's an election that started the other day. I guess they're still tallying the votes. Half the votes have been counted. A guy named Nazarias Fura, he's the right-wing candidate. He's Trump's guy. He's ahead by a razor-thin margin. And the pardoning of Hernandez was a backup plan. It signaled that the U.S. was going to wanted a right-wing government down there in Honduras. So this is Snowfall. This is Operation Condor. This is what's been going on for 50 years in South America, really since the end of World War II, when you had the U.S. government facilitate the movement of ex-Nazis over to South America, and several of them, ranging from Klaus Barbie to the heroin guy, August Record, were people that were integral to the setting up of the early post-war global drug trade, the movement of coke and H from South America to the United States. People that were Nazi war criminals were Klaus Barbie is the one who helped the character that the real guy the character of Sosa is based on, helped him overthrow Bolivia. He ran a crew called the Fiancés of Death. They were made up of mostly ex-Nazis. And this Honduran release of this Honduran president who was right-wing. So basically with Trump, it's do what I want and you can do whatever. This was the policy under Reagan. This is U.S. policy, especially in the Americas. And it's I studied it a lot, and it was kind of weird to why letting the drugs in and all that. But the deal is simply this. People like money. Those countries are a source, obviously, South America, a source for coke, which has had a global all-time production high and global usage high, and prices adjusted for inflation for coke are the cheapest they've ever been in the United States. Bricks in Detroit are under 15,000 or 15,000 in Detroit. They're 12 or something in LA, and they're around. And adjusted for inflation, I mean, the last time they were that cheap, say in the mid-90s, well, inflation's doubled since then, or close to it. So that's like having a $7,500 key, right? Keys weren't that cheap in 89. So they're the cheapest they've ever been. And part of the reason is, actions like Trump letting a guy out that helped facilitate 400,000 kilos simply so he can maintain a right-wing control of the Honduran government. If you're a straightforward person who thinks the world works by law, I mean, letting this guy out is quite shocking. hatred of anything left wing, which really just means, it usually on the ground means people want to have unions. They want to have a little bit higher wages. They want protections of the environment, water rights, for any sort of rights, and that everything should be business, business, business. You see the deal he made with Bukele, the former DJ turned president of El Salvador, sending random inmates to his prison to really get tortured. And now, if you didn't know, as the U.S. courts are ruling that that's not legal, they're dumping those guys off in random other, a lot of them are going to Africa, where the U.S. cuts a couple bucks to countries like Mali to just tape them. So there's this bizarre, you get picked up at a Home Depot in Iowa, and you get sent to a prison in El Salvador, get tortured. And then after finally they get you out of there, you end up in, jail in the Democratic Republic of Congo or something. And I think a lot of those guys will end up making their way back to Mexico one way or another. But pretty crazy that Trump would pardon this guy. And speaking of crazy stuff, Pete Hegseth.
Pete Hegseth under pressure. The president tonight meeting with top aides, including his defense secretary and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, as questions grow about the United States military's second deadly strike on a specific boat, an alleged drug boat from Venezuela. The Post is reporting that Hegseth's order to the U.S. military was, quote, to kill everybody. And that's what prompted the follow-up strike against those people clinging to the side of the boat.
So we know that, on the other hand, he's letting crooked politicians who let drugs help facilitate drugs coming into the country, though Trump claims to be so anti-drug that he's shooting at these boats. He's making these boats coming out of Venezuela, military targets. 83 people that they claim have been killed so far, but Pete Hegseth, the Department of War, not Department of Defense, Department of War, head of the Department of War, may have admitted to war crimes.
Now, the main headline in the Drudge Report is war crime, Hegseth bloodlust. And it comes as well-known conservative lawyer Andrew McCarthy writes in the National Review, if this happened as described in the Washington Post report, it was at best a war crime under federal law. At best a war crime, he says. Well, he's not alone.
There was a particular boating attack where there were 2 survivors and the SEALs finished them off. Now, that's in total violation of all international law. You're supposed to take injured combatants, injured civilians.
I think it's very possible there was a war crime committed.
Do you believe it amounts to a war crime?
Under the facts, yes.
Obviously, if that occurred, that would be very serious, and I agree that would be an illegal act.
And this report was a bombshell, prompting the responses that we just showed you and massive cleanup and denial from the Trump administration. Hegseth calling it fabricated, inflammatory, and derogatory reporting.
Whether it's a military action, calling people on a boat, even if they did have cocaine, as terrorists, that's not really viable under U.S. law, actually. Now, they have declared both Maduro, they're calling Maduro, who has a $50 million bounty on him. They're calling Maduro the head of something called the Cartel del Soles, the cartel of the suns. Venezuelan military officials wear suns on their epaulets, 1 sun, you're 1-star general, 3 sons, you're a 3-star general.
The U.S. escalating pressure against Venezuela by designating a cartel group allegedly tied to President Nicolas Maduro as a foreign terrorist organization. But here's the thing. It's not really a cartel, at least not technically speaking. So this group we're talking about, Cartel de los Soles, is widely considered a loosely organized network of drug traffickers. The U.S. claims the group is headed by Maduro, but the administration has not provided specific evidence to back that claim up. Many Venezuelans began using the term Cartel de los Soles in the 1990s, referring to high-ranking military officers who got rich running drugs. Then the term was expanded to officials who were also breaking the law. So the word cartel in this case is kind of an umbrella term. All of this is just the latest escalation in the Trump administration's campaign to combat alleged drug traffickers in this region. So far, the massive military buildup in the Caribbean and relentless boat strikes against alleged narco-terrorists have killed more than 80 people. As for Nicolas Maduro, he is as defiant as ever, calling the U.S.'s latest move ridiculous.
And once again, he's claiming he's going after Venezuela because of Los Drugas, but drug availability is up in the U.S. Seizures are down because ICE is being pulled from the border and from drug interdiction to round up, people at the Home Depot and deport them. There's finite resources. There's a certain amount of people, even though they're hiring more and more. The low quality workers they're hiring for ICE, they're only equipped to jump out of cars and try to grab people. They can't do drug interdiction. They're not enough time for them to have any training. And of course, Venezuela they may sit on the most oil in the world. It's not necessarily the most easily accessible, but so Venezuela right now is pressuring OPEC to pressure the U.S. to protect them by telling the U.S. they're going to raise oil prices. I think Venezuela is part of OPEC. That's a cabal of countries, of oil-producing countries. Trump is acting. I mean, these are things you would see. This is like an empire thing, laid naked and bare, the U.S. empire, which the United States has always been an empire, and that's kind of the reality. Think about how many different sorts of people actually live in the country, from the Eskimos to the various native indigenous the Native Americans who are scattered across a huge landmass and have different types of cultures from each other. You had Africans brought here. You have, vastly different kind of people in different parts of the country. You got Hawaiians that were conquered as an island. Puerto Rico was taken from Spain in a war. Guam is part of the United States. Guamanians are a group of people. And there's Polynesians. So I think he wants to add, he would love to invade. I don't know what his game plan is. Putting boots on the ground would be a lot of dead Americans in Venezuela. He's offering Maduro a deal to step down so he could slide in someone that would make probably amenable oil deals with people of his choosing. Trump seems to be using the power of the presidency, like letting out this Honduran massive, corrupt drug kingpin president. I think everything that he does is to set a way for him or people under him to make money. Pretty crazy. This guy, I don't even know if he's served a year yet. So, and Pete Hegseth may have admitted to murder with finishing off those two guys on that boat. So that's kind of an quick little overview I thought you might be interested in and what's going on at a higher level of the geopolitics down south of the border. I mean, could talk about it for a long time. It gets pretty complex, but that's some key events of right now. So what do you think? What do you think the U.S. rights are with Venezuela? Should we be... I mean, he's saying we have the right to attack their boats because they send out all these drugs. But if you're pardoning people that have sent 400,000 kilos, I mean, are you really working to protect the United States from drugs? Is that just something to say? We certainly don't have the right to just try to move in some way and semi-conquer or install who we want in Venezuela just so we could take their oil. I mean, that's not legal under international law. That would be an invasion. But he's creating a false narrative about Venezuelan drug smuggling into the U.S. And again, when you're pardoning someone who facilitated 400,000 kilos, it's hard to say you're too worried about the importation of drugs into the country out profit American dope.
It's a dramatic end to a slow fall from grace for a man once considered a key U.S. ally in the region. Rumors of an impending arrest intensifying after his brother's conviction last year. The former Honduran Congressman Juan Antonio Hernandez was arrested and tried in the U.S., found guilty of smuggling more than 185 kilos of cocaine into the country, and sentenced to life in prison last March. His older brother was named as co-conspirator in that case, prosecutors alleging he used his presidential influence to provide state-sponsored resources and security to drug traffickers.
Hey everybody. Donald Trump just announced that he's pardoning one of the largest foreign drug traffickers in the world. For lack of a better word, this is insane. I'm Liz Oyer, the former pardon attorney for the Department of Justice.